Day 13 of the Lindsay Clancy trial is in the can, as they say. It is a finished day, a day focused on digital forensics. Um, but as I've watched the coverage of this, and I'm not watching this trial gavel to gavel. I am checking the live updates, I'm reading about it, and I'm reading awesome reporting by lots of incredible reporters on it. I just wish I had the time to do it, to watch the whole trial be so great. But alas, I have to work during the day. But I have been reading about it, and it is a fascinating case. I'm tragic and heartbreaking for sure, 100%. But it's also fascinating, and I'm left having watched, especially yesterday, but over the course of the trial, moments where Lindsay Clancy is breaking down in court. This is something we don't see typically, right? The defendant will sit there stoically, and you wonder what's going on. I mean, you'd think that not guilty people would cry a little or have some sort of emotional reaction, and so many defendants don't do that. But in this case, Lindsay Clancy is breaking down, and it begs the question: is the question is, by bringing in all these witnesses and showing all of this horrific stuff to the jury, which you got to do if you're bringing a case like this, right? Is it backfiring on the prosecution? Is the jury going to go, I'm not going to convict this woman. No, look at her. Look, like she's breaking down over there, which made me do a little bit of research on filicide and postpartum depression. And I think I've got a few answers to some questions that I had about, like, how often do prosecutions succeed in cases where the defendant is claiming, hey, I did this thing, but I was in the middle of not postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis. And had I not been in postpartum psychosis, I never would have done this. How often does that defense work? That's what I've been asking myself. And there are some actual academic studies on the subject that we're going to get into. Most of them are older, but I still think they probably hold up statistically. So we're going to get into that. I think it's a fascinating question. Well, the other part of this case is that those of us who are following it seem to be bifurcated into two very distinct camps. One being, she did it, let her ride the lightning. Not everybody's that way, but you know what I mean? Like, she did it, lock her up for the rest of her life, or worse. And then the other side is, there's no way that she did this. Leave this poor woman alone. Get her the help that she needs. And a subsection of that are all saying, Patrick did it. Right? It's like, so we have divided ourselves. We have self-segregated into camps on this case. Well, and it's just one that brings out the human emotion in all of us, right? It is really tough. So I'm wondering if what the prosecution is doing is going to backfire on them, and is going to it that the jury, which is mostly composed of women, if I remember correctly, are they going to acquit? So what we're going to do today, we're going to recap the case, recap the day in court, and then we're going to read parts of an academic paper on postpartum psychosis and another one on infanticide. It's fascinating. And then, of course, we've got 3 questions. We've got some true crime headlines. Oh my goodness, the tragedy in a Minnesota daycare. We've got some legal wrangling over the Tate brothers, who are fighting extradition back to the UK. We've got an interesting news out of California prisons, where the Department of Justice, the federal Department of Justice, is claiming that California prisons are not protecting their female prisoners from SA. And that's like a major, for me, abuse inside a prison is like that is my personal crusade. I hate abuse inside a prison. I hate prison justice. I hate abuse prisoner to prisoner, but I especially hate it when it is the staff, the guards, the officers, the administrations, the wardens that are abusing these prisoners, and women in prison especially seem to take the brunt of this abuse. So we're going to be talking about that. Of course, we're going to cleanse the old palate at the end of the day with some good news out of Brown University, which I'm excited to share with you. But first, why don't we, because we have homework on this channel, guys, we have homework. Let's go with the question of the day. Let's get the juices flowing, the conversational juices flowing over in the comments and in the live chat. Hey, window seat or aisle? Are you a window or aisle person? What's your choice? And explain it if you would. That is the question of the day, window or aisle. And of course, when we get into 3 questions, maybe it will be somewhat related to that. But yeah, what do we got, guys? We got 10 pounds of content to put into a 5-pound show. Javi, roll it. This video contains mature themes and discussions intended only for adult audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello there, my friend. Welcome back to another true crime conversation with me, Gavin Fish. My name's Gavin. What's your name? Ah, it's a beautiful name. That's a great name. Nice to meet you, though we may be near or far from each other. I'm glad that you are joining me today. Glad that you're playing along with the question of the day. Glad that you are interested in this case, the case of the prosecution of Lindsay Clancy, the Massachusetts woman who is on trial for the murder of her 3 children. 5-year-old Cora. Look at that little thing. Oh my goodness. I'm a girl dad. I'm a boy dad too, but I got 3 girls. And they were so much fun when they were little. They were just with their little dresses and the bows in their hair and the everything. It just melted me. It continues to melt. And guys, no, I'm not going to share it. But Kimberly and I are going to be grandparents next year. And I'm just looking forward to that again. Anyway, 5-year-old Cora, 3-year-old little Dawson. And look at that little kid. Look at him, all just a bundle of energy. He's jumping. He's smiling. He's having a good time. He's a handsome little guy. Just as sweet as can be. And then 8-month-old Callan playing with his big dirt. Oh my goodness. It's heartbreaking. It's heart-wrenching. This whole thing is just heart-wrenching. Now, Lindsay says, yes, I did it. I did it with exercise bands. I then tried to remove myself from this mortal realm with the little cutty and the jumpy. I've paralyzed myself, and it was all because I was in postpartum psychosis. And there's been a parade of prosecution witnesses that have you guys seen the list of medications she was on? It's nuts. So that is the case, and of course, I just don't want to get it. I'm beating a dead horse here, which is an unfortunate turn of phrase, but it's just so sad. It's just so tragic. I just can't even express this. Like, children, oh, okay. So that's the case that we're talking about. Before we get into it, though, let's see what you guys are saying over in the live chat, answering that question of the day. First, coming out of Marie Jubenville. Thank you very much for the super chat. Thanks for getting us started. These videos, the Siders family videos, The Clancy videos, YouTube just considers them not fit for advertiser consumption. So it really helps a lot, your super chats. Thanks, guys. And thank you, Marie. Marie says, I always get the window seat because I'm disabled and don't want to have to get up for anyone or anything. Well, that's a perfectly legitimate reason to be a window seat person. I am an aisle seat person because I like to do laps on the plane. I like to walk back and forth. I like to be able to go to the bathroom. Melissa says, I think the husband had a lot to do with it. And that's an interesting take, because out of all this that I have consumed, I have never come to that. I haven't felt that at all. I mean, it might be my personal bias. Of course I have personal bias. But yeah, a lot of people are with you, Melissa. Garth B. Nutt saying, window seat, I like to see where I'm going. Ava says, hello from, and then Ava doesn't tell us, but I imagine it's an amazing place. Linda Bear says, either one, would rather window, but anything is okay. Scotch's mom says, aisle seat, I have to be able to access the restroom. That is valid, definitely. Eva says, hello from northeastern Ohio. Okay, we're back. We're back. Good. I'm a window person so I can sleep. My hubby prefers aisle because he is tall, so it works out. Yeah, that's another reason. I got long legs, right? Though I do have to say, losing 90 pounds takes more than just padding off the front, let's say. There's padding off the back that is taking, and now all of a sudden my legs fit. And I'm not super tall. I'm 6'2". But yeah, the aisle seat so that one can, put out their leg to stretch it, get the knee joints lubricated. Yeah. Kittens from Hermitage, close by to me. Pixie P says, I believe yesterday was Lindsay's birthday. She's 1 year older than I am. I have thought long and hard about her case. I had postpartum depression with my oldest. I was 22. If I had babies as is that I-8 or 18? As 32, I'd be concerned. Yeah, I agree. Itaya says, window seat, incredible views, and somewhere to rest your head to sleep. Melissa, window or aisle? I like the aisle, so if I have to get out in a hurry, that's the best way. Nice. Either one for me, says Tina May, as long as my husband is sitting next to me. Mooney says, window seat all the way, especially on liftoff and landing. Love looking at clouds. Isn't it amazing that we just get to dilly-dally all over the world if we want to? That is available to us. We can. Isn't that cool? Christine says, so awesome that you're going to be grandparents. Congratulations. Thank you very much. We didn't have much to do with it. But we're excited. We are excited. Faux show. Couple more before we go. Before we move on. Congratulations to me and Kimberly, says Garth B. Nutt. Thank you very much. Marie says, congratulations to me and Kimberly. Thank you. Congratulations, Paulette. Thank you. Clarinet Girl says, I love geography in the land, so it's window seat for me, especially on descent. Getting lots of congratulations. Thank you very much. Nicole saying, unfortunately, many of those medications are the go-to first-line treatments for her symptoms, and they can hurt more than help depending on a person's enzymes, DNA makeup. Never one size fits all. Yeah, and that seems to be the modus operandi, right? That you just, doctors will try, see if this works. No, it doesn't work. Try this one. And that didn't work. Okay, try this combination, this dosage. So yeah, it's hard. The question is, why weren't her kids protected while this was happening? Oh, it's so hard. So hard. Ganja Girl says, in my opinion, Patrick is Chris Watts 2.0. Interesting. Nicole-esque is in Las Vegas, very cloudy and unsunny, humid and raining. Robin says, I like the window seat when I'm flying over nice territory, but if my knees are aching, then it's the aisle seat. Plus, if my grandson is busy, I can block him. A very good strategy there. And then Sharky says, I'm 5'3", 6'2", is super tall. It's above average. It's above average. I think we'd have to ask my snuggly bear, my sweetie pie, my one and only, but I'm pretty sure the fact that I was tall was the thing that overcame the last name Fish for Kimberly. She, after her first date, she told her mom it was fun, but his last name's Fish. There's no future in this. That's funny. Patty says likes the aisle seat so I can stretch my legs, don't feel closed in. Mooney says window seat all the way. Love seeing the cloud formations at liftoff and landing. Scotch's mom, congratulations on being a granddaddy. I'm excited. My kids call me Pater, as in paterfamilias, as in paterfamilias. But I first heard that term from the classic Coen brothers movie, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I'm the paterfamilias. And pretty soon my kids started calling me Pater. So I think that's going to be my grandpa name. It's just going to be Pater. And I'm excited for it. It's going to be fun. Okay, guys, let's dive in to the old recap just to see what happened this day in the Lindsay Clancy trial. Come on with me over to this page, this report coming out of WCVB, written by Sarah Congi earlier today. Dateline, Plymouth, Mass. Lindsay Clancy's phone searches, text messages, and other digital activity became the focus of her murder trial Thursday, this day, the year of our Lord, August 13th, 2026, as prosecutors and the defense questioned a state police investigator about months of data recovered from her iPhone. Timothy Chiappini, an investigator with the state police who examined Lindsay Clancy's phone, testified it was used to search for 3V Restaurant in Plymouth, including a map search that would show a route length. Of course, this has to do with, Patrick went off on errands for Lindsay, and prosecutors are saying she did that on purpose to get him out of the house. And that is an indication that she is in her right mind, right? Prosecutors allege Lindsay Clancy sent her husband to the restaurant because it would give her enough time to kill the 3 children. Chiappini read messages from the notes section of her phone in which Lindsay described feeling sad and depressed, struggling to parent her 3rd child as she had her first, and her decision to stop breastfeeding. She also wrote affirmations such as, "I am strong," and listed reasons for gratitude. Again, does this backfire on the prosecution? This is, I think, either she's like a Meryl Streep level actress, Meryl Streep being the biggest loser in Academy Award competitions in the history of the Academy Awards, by the way. That's funny. She's been nominated the most times, but she hasn't won the most. I'm trying to remember, is that Katharine Hepburn? Doesn't matter. Anyway, Robin, what was that? What was that, Robin? That's exactly what that was. That was a tangent. What does that have to do with anything, Gavin? What does that have to do? Come on. You're a professional. Be better. Okay, here we go. He also read this note from October 2022. Quote, "I'm terrified of something happening to my kids or doing something wrong to mess up their development. Our generation is inundated with information about every aspect of parenting and everything that can go wrong if you don't get it right, and all the scary things happening in the world. It's insane. For the last 5 years, I've filled my mind with just all things parenting, and it's just unhealthy," Chiappini read from the entry. Earlier testimony from MSP investigator Kyle Pavao. I wonder how he pronounces his name. That's a very it sounds Portuguese. Doesn't matter. Focused on Robin. I nearly did it again. Focused on internet activity from August 2022, including a visit to a page about methods of self-unaliving. Pavao said the wiki page of Tom Hull, a singer who died by that method, was visited. But on cross, Pavao acknowledged that the forensic data could not establish who was sitting at the computer. He also testified he found searches about bipolar disorder and what to do when a psychiatrist overprescribes. On cross, defense attorney Kevin Reddington asked Pavao about his broader analysis of that computer. Were there any searches on that computer, for example, ways to kill? Reddington asked. No, there was not, Pavao said. Dr. Barbara Olson of the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner was called to testify Wednesday afternoon. Okay, well, we don't need to go back all that, but she definitely, that was the breakdown yesterday, was talking about the autopsies of her 3 children. And again, you're just going to get sympathy with a jury when you do that kind of stuff. So I don't understand what the prosecution is doing there, though I also, quibbling with myself, because what am I, guys? What am I?
Professional quibbler here!
That's right, I'm a professional quibbler. But now I don't remember what I was quibbling about. Oh, the quibble is, what else are they going to do? They're going to have to present that stuff to the jury, right? So is it going to backfire on them? They're kind of in a catch-22 there. Catch-22. No, don't do it, Kevin. Maybe. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not, you want me to do it at this point, but I'm not gonna. I'm not taking the bait. Not taking the bait. Okay, so that's where we are. Today was all digital forensics and stuff like that. But yesterday was a very emotional day. So I asked myself the question, how often is this defense successful? This whole, we're seeing a couple of these. Of course, we're seeing this with the Clancy case, but we're also seeing it with the Siders case right now, right? All 4 attorneys for the 4 different Siders adults are asking the court to evaluate them to see if they are legally insane. And so it seems like we're seeing this. Of course, our reticular activator, we're working on, we're looking for this kind of stuff as it's in front of us. But it made me ask the question, okay, how often does that defense work? Not guilty by reason of legal insanity. You guys know, people who watch me a lot know that I covered a case in Clarion County, PA, where that was the defense and it was unsuccessful. Of course, it had nothing to do with infanticide. It wasn't a mother. It was different. But that was what the defense was. How often does this work is the question, and specifically, how often does it work with postpartum psychosis? So I did a little searcheroo and I found a couple of academic papers that I want to take a look at. Just to, and they're long. We're not going to read the entire thing, but there are a couple of things that I want to cover. So come with me over, over here. This is from, what is the name of this organization? It is the Journal of the American Academy of Psychiatry and the Law. What a great name. I think it's the same. Nope. It's the National, what is it? The National Library of Medicine, for the filicide one that we're going to get into here in just a second. But okay, let's talk about this paper, the postpartum psychosis, and the court's paper. Okay, so it starts off, although mental state defenses frequently are raised in cases of infanticide, legal criteria for these defenses vary across jurisdiction. We reviewed outcomes of such cases in states using McNaughton or Model Penal Code standards for insanity and the factors considered by the courts in reaching those decisions. And then blah, 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 blah. Okay? So it's a study about mental state defenses. Infanticide, defined as the killing of children less than 1 year of age, has evoked questions and controversy in both psychiatry and in the law. Infanticide is ideologically distinct from neonaticide, the killing of an infant in the first 24 hours of life. And then, of course, filicide is just killing your children. Over the years, when a woman with postpartum mental illness has killed her child, the courts have responded in vastly different ways. In some courts, such women have been found not guilty by reason of insanity and ordered to undergo psychiatric treatment, while in others, they have been found guilty and sentenced to prison, sometimes for life. Some scholars have argued that differing state insanity standards result in disparate sentencing and blah, 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 blah. Okay? All right. Postpartum disorders definition and epidemiology. The postpartum period is the time of highest risk in a woman's lifetime for the development of mental illness. Let me read that sentence again. The postpartum period is the time of highest risk in a woman's lifetime for the development of mental illness. Let me just talk about this for a moment. This is brand new to me, okay? But it was a couple of months ago. I was with an old friend, and we were talking about our childhoods. And I'm not going to give too much away here because it's not my story to totally share. But I was shocked to discover that he grew up in a household not dissimilar from my own, but he had to kind of had to fend for himself more than I did because of a mental illness that was brought on in the postpartum period. So very, like this happens. And according to this, and people that it's happened that have been affected by it, either woman or their child or their spouse or whomever, right? That like a lot of people are affected by this. Okay. The postpartum period, I repeat for the second time, is the time of highest risk in a woman's lifetime for the development of a mental illness. Although the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 4th edition, text revision, defines the postpartum period as the immediate, relatively short time following delivery, in research study, this period has been defined as ranging from a few days to 12 months. Postpartum onset psychological problems generally fall into one of three categories: so-called baby blues, postpartum depression, and postpartum psychosis. Baby blues affect up to 70% of mothers and include mild symptoms of crying and irritability which end by the second week of childbirth. Postpartum onset depression affects from 7 to 15% of mothers and is characterized by sadness, crying, self-blame, loss of control, irritability, anxiety, tension, and sleep difficulties. Factors such as personality, negative feelings toward the infant, marital discord, poor social supports, and ambivalence over parenthood appear to predispose women to the onset of depressive symptoms in the postpartum period. Postpartum psychosis, the most severe of postpartum mental disorders, occurs in 1 to 2 of 1,000 births. So 1/10 of 1%, or 1/20th, or 2/10 of 1%, right? And frequently requires hospitalization to stabilize symptoms. The risk of postpartum psychosis rises to 1 in 7 in mothers with a past episode of postpartum psychosis. Wow. So if it's happened before, you've got a 1 in 7 chance that it may happen again. Onset usually occurs within the first 3 months after childbirth, with a majority of cases appearing within 3 to 14 days. The disorder is characterized by an extended period of loss of contact with reality that may include auditory or visual hallucinations, delusions, or rapid mood swings. The auditory and visual hallucinations may focus on violence towards self or the infant. Studies show that women with postpartum psychosis are often victims of DV or CA and often have histories of abandonment or substance abuse. Risk factors for postpartum psychosis can be of both biologic and genetic origins. One study found that the rate of postpartum psychosis in mothers with bipolar disorder was 26%. with the rate in mothers with bipolar disorder and a family history of postpartum psychosis increasing to 57%. I had no idea. It makes me more grateful that we had 5 children and all was well in the Fish family Zion. Oh my goodness. Actually, I think we all need to be a little more, you know what? Why am I projecting this on you? I think I need to be more sensitive. I need to be more understanding, more sensitive to women who have given birth that are experiencing the baby blues, depression, or even psychosis. I need to be more sympathetic and helpful. Wow. Okay. Let me go down to this section. Legal aspects, postpartum syndromes, and the courts. Okay. It has been estimated that 4% of women with postpartum psychosis commit infanticide. That is shockingly high to me. 4% of women with postpartum psychosis commit infanticide. Since the 1980s, courts have permitted mothers with postpartum psychosis to assert the insanity defense. Postpartum psychosis and other postpartum mental health syndromes, like postpartum depression, are also admissible in sentencing hearings as mitigation on the basis of diminished capacity. The insanity defense is successful, pause for dramatic impact, in less than 0.1% of all criminal trials. Okay, but that's all criminal trials, not criminal trials where they're saying, hey, we've got postpartum psychosis. So let's go on. However, major population studies, including McKee and Shea, Dorbin, and Bourget and Bradford, found insanity pleas successful in 20, 27, and 15% of infanticide cases, respectively. These results suggest that regardless of the legal or medical guidelines, the law treats women who kill their children with more leniency. So, like, if we average this out, right, it's like you got a 1 in 4 chance of winning. I'm no statistician, but 20, 27, and 15, right around in there. 1 to 4, 1 in 5 chance of winning if you plead insanity over postpartum psychosis. All right. Nonetheless, infanticide case outcomes vary extremely. At least 2 such women have been sentenced to death, whereas some have been released without a prison sentence. Currently, most states either use the McNaughton test or the Model Penal Code test, or a variation of either, to assess an insanity plea. The McNaughton test is purely cognitive. The defendant must show whether she understood her actions or that her actions were wrong. Like that she understood her actions or that she understood that her actions were wrong is what that sentence, I think, is supposed to mean. The MPC test includes both a cognitive and a volitional prong. The defendant must show she understood right from wrong, as well as whether she was able to conform her conduct to legal requirements. Some psychiatrists and legal scholars have criticized both tests for failing to allow for degrees of incapacity. The presence of postpartum psychosis may significantly impair a woman's mental stability, but still not satisfy the cognitive test or even the irresistible impulse test, like as e.g. the volitional prong. For example, after killing her child, a defendant with postpartum psychosis may recognize that the act was wrong, but because of the debilitating effects of her mental illness, may not have appreciated its wrongfulness at the time of the offense. And this might be the case with Lindsay Clancy, right? That shortly after, while she was doing it, maybe she didn't understand that it was wrong, but shortly after did, and was like, okay, I'm offing myself here. If you believe her defense, right? Okay, To illustrate how infanticides are adjudicated in jurisdictions that use different insanity standards, we review a series of such cases. Our analysis considered issues raised by the court in considering postpartum disorder-related defenses, and then it goes into what their methods were, and then here are the results. Okay. The search yielded 34 cases. I should have highlighted this one too. Let's do it. The search yielded 34 cases. 26 were adjudicated in McNaughton standard states, 7 in states with MPC standards, and 1 in a state without an insanity defense, Idaho. The defendants in states in which the cases were adjudicated are shown in Appendix A. Given the relative difficulty of meeting the McNaughton cognitive standard, it is plausible that women tried in McNaughton jurisdictions would have less success in pleading a not guilty by reason of insanity defense than those tried in NPC states. This hypothesis suggests that there is a higher proportion of convictions among defendants tried in McNaughton states than among those in NPC states. In states that use the McNaughton standard, 46%, 12 out of 26, were found not guilty by reason of insanity. 46%, 12 of 26, were convicted. And 7%, 2 in 26, were found guilty but mentally ill. Now, that is one of the choices in the state of Pennsylvania. It's a different thing. It's not guilty by reason of insanity and guilty but mentally ill. Basically, it just means a different sentence kind of thing, right? Not guilty by reason of insanity. They will not go to prison. This at least how it's explained in Pennsylvania. But they will be committed, and they will be in a hospital until they are deemed sane. Guilty but mentally ill means they go to prison, but they get mental illness treatment. Full on guilty, they're just like, Gen Pop, you go. Okay. All right. Similarly, so like 46 to 46, not quite 50-50, right? But in McNaughton states, in this study, it's kind of a 50-50 shot whether you are found not guilty or not. Okay. Similarly, well, it's not really, it's 46-54, but okay. Similarly, in states that use the MPC standard, 43% were found not guilty by reason of insanity, 43% were not convicted, and 14% were found guilty but mentally ill. Although the sample size was insufficient for statistical analysis, the pattern does not support the hypothesis that the outcome of postpartum insanity pleas in infanticide cases is entirely dependent on the legal standard for insanity. I think that's everything that I had. Let's see. Let's see what our time is. We're okay. These basically, okay, let me read this part here. This is fascinating. Regardless of jurisdiction, postpartum psychosis was present in all of the cases with successful not guilty by reason of insanity adjudication in infanticide. So in both McNaughton and MPC jurisdictions, successful NGRI defenses involved women with acute psychosis, generally labeled postpartum psychosis, but also labeled major depression severe with psychotic features with postpartum onset. Below are some examples of successful not guilty by reason of insanity defenses, okay? Among the cases reviewed, courts in Texas, a McNaughton state, have found 6 mothers not guilty by reason of insanity since 2003. 2 of these cases are highlighted here. Andrea Yates, a lot of people can't talk about Lindsay Clancy without talking about Andrea Yates, right? Andrea Yates was charged with capital murder for drowning 3 of her 5 children. After a mistrial, she was found not guilty by reason of insanity in her second trial. In the first trial, the jury found Ms. Yates' ability to call the police after killing her children to be strong evidence that she understood her acts. However, during the retrial, several defense experts testified that because of her psychotic state, she did not know right from wrong, was incapable of knowing what she did was wrong, or believed her actions were reasonable. In the second case, in 2009, Audie Sanchez dismembered her 3.5-week-old son and allegedly ate part of his brain. She stated that the devil told her to commit the act. 3 psychiatrists testified that she had postpartum psychosis. She was adjudicated not guilty by reason of insanity. In California, several similar cases have been adjudicated NGRI. Chantel Kavanaugh, who had been jailed for almost 5 years in the suffocation death of her infant daughter, argued at trial that postpartum depression and an eating disorder led to a psychotic episode. The presence of psychosis was a primary contributor to her NGRI adjudication in 2010. In New York, Anne Green, a former pediatric nurse, was found NGRI for killing 2 of her newborn children in 1980 and 1982 and attempting to suffocate her 3rd child in 1985. She blamed postpartum psychosis for her actions. She testified that she had seen hands she did not recognize holding pillows over her newborns' faces. After being found not guilty by reason of insanity, she was ordered to undergo a psychiatric evaluation in a state mental hospital as an outpatient. Yeah, so and it goes on. We don't need to read all of these, but it goes on all these different kinds of cases, right? So I guess what was our question here? I mean, is Lindsay Clancy going to be found not guilty by reason of insanity? Well, it seems it doesn't matter what legal standard she's held to, McNaughton or MCP or MPC. She's got a good shot, 46% to 43 to 46% shot of winning, of getting a not guilty by reason of insanity verdict. Now, my personal view here, from the parts of the trial that I've watched, from all of the reports that I've read, all of the documents that I've read, I'm okay if she gets a not guilty by reason of insanity verdict, as long as she's not an outpatient somewhere. I want her inpatient somewhere getting treatment to be well again. That's what I'm hoping. Let's before we get to the filicide paper, let's go see what you guys are saying over in the old comment-a-rooney section. Dietitian says, when do you think she came out of psychosis? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, according to the definition, postpartum psychosis can happen all the way out to a year. I think it can happen I think it can go out way longer than that based on the conversation with my friend. So who knows if she even has come out of it? I don't know. I mean, and what are the ramifications of her having to sit in a courtroom and see like photographs of autopsies of her 3 children? That I gotta imagine that's not good on the old mental health. Robin says, I've mentioned my OB doctor not Doctor Who, my OB doctor who ended up very mentally unwell, and she unalived her 13-year-old son. She planned this act, but she had become so disconnected with reality. She thought that she was doing something to save her son. Both can be true at the same time. This is a woman who was brilliant and kept my baby alive while I had a difficult pregnancy. She loved her son very much. Yeah, it's tough. Clarinet Girl says Gavin Yates is another case study, but she also had schizophrenia. Yeah, that's good to bring that up. Melissa says, I'm surprised the number wasn't closer. And a couple more. Mooney says, I've heard of some cases that plead insanity once the person is treated, then they go to prison to finish out their sentence. Maybe it varies by state. Yeah, maybe. Possibly. The guilty but mentally ill option in the state of Pennsylvania is an interesting one because they go to prison, but they go to a mental health facility within the prison. They're separated from the general population. Bean and I says, this is Robin, my illustrious mod, one of my mods they're awesome. Are they not, guys? Are my mods not amazing? Robin says, I don't think some people understand how psychosis works. I think most people don't understand it, including me. People don't always share their altered thinking because they don't think the people they are around are normal, but they are. They're okay. Yeah, it's tough. Hey, Kristen, just wanted to say I'm catching my first live. Thank you for talking about the case. My pleasure. Kristen, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate you. Okie dokie. Let's go over what is thank you very much to Mooney for I think you mean awful for YouTube being awful to content creators. Yeah, guys, well, it's important to talk about, and these cases are important. They're just important to talk about. We're talking about tough stuff here, and so I appreciate you, Mooney, and I appreciate Marie for the super chat as well. That helps tons. Can't even tell you. Okay, again, thank you, Mooney. Appreciate that. All right, come back with me over to this paper. This is from the, what is it? The National Laboratory of Medicine. Let me click the right button here. This is a paper on filicide in the United States. Okay, just I'll read part of the abstract. In the U.S., the Accreditation Council of Graduate Medical Education determines the curriculum required, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Fellows are expect, blah, blah, blah. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, it starts with Andrea Yates, right? Talks about talking, what she did. Charged with multiple counts, first-degree murder, death penalty, blah, 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 blah. I'd forgotten about that. She graduated valedictorian of her high school class of 608 students. She highly regarded nurse at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston. Wow, she was determined to be a super mom. And yet, she did what she did, right? All right. Child murder by parents, filicide, is one of the most upsetting types of crime, indeed. It is even more distressing when a mother kills her child than when a father does, because we expect mothers to be selfless and to love and to protect their children at all costs. Mothers are supposed to be guided by natural feminine instincts that can infer an angelic temperament, make them clairvoyant about their children's needs, and willing to place their own desires second to those of their family. Yeah, like you are describing my sweetie pie, my snuggly bear, my one and only. When Andrea Yates killed her 5 children, Newsweek asked, how can a mother commit such a crime against nature and all morality and end the lives she has so recently born and nurtured? This chapter will seek to answer that question among others. Historically, women who have killed their children have been considered monsters. The Puritans believed, quote, all women who killed their babies violated what was taken to be the law of nature decreed by God. To women who killed their children then, they were by definition unnatural and monstrous, more hardened than the sea monsters who draw out their breasts and give such to their young ones. Close quote. The media sometimes characterizes mothers who kill their children as either mad or bad. Quote, women portrayed as mad have been characterized as morally pure women who by all accounts have conformed to traditional gender roles and notions of femininity. These women are often viewed as good mothers, and their crimes... Ooh, and Lindsay Clancy specifically was characterized as a good mother by their nanny, right? Okay. So these women are often viewed as good mothers, and their crimes are considered irrational, uncontrollable acts, usually the direct result of mental illness. In contrast, women characterized as bad are depicted as cold, calloused, evil mothers who have often been neglectful of their children. The most quintessentially bad infanticidal mother is Susan Smith. An Australian headline stated that Susan Smith committed the mother of all crimes. The media relentlessly portrayed her as bad, even though the jury voted to spare her life. Fathers who kill their children evoke much less emotion because they're not expected to have the same unconditional love that mothers have for their children. Which is kind of sad, but I mean, human nature is human nature, right? Okay, scrolling down. I thought there we go. Legal disposition of filicide offenders. There is great disparity in the sentences given to parents convicted of killing their children. We are ambivalent about filicide in that society simultaneously expresses moral outrage at the offense, yet often treats offenders, especially mothers, with lenience. The average sentence for women convicted of filicide in the United States was 17 years. Fathers are likely to receive much longer sentences than mothers who kill their children. Fathers are also more likely to be sentenced to execution than mothers. No crime is more likely to succeed with an insanity defense than a mother who has killed her children. The filicide categories that are more likely to succeed with an insanity defense are the altruistic filicides and the acutely psychotic filicides. Immediately after altruistic and acutely psychotic filicides, the perpetrators usually run to seek help, confess, and make no attempt to conceal their crime. By contrast, the unwanted child and the child maltreatment filicide perpetrators often go to great lengths to hide incriminating evidence. Many women who succeed with the insanity defense had planned a filicide / self-unaliving. This sounds familiar, but were unsuccessful in the self part after killing their children. Most, 69% women had auditory hallucinations and 74% were delusional. Psychotic states that predispose to successful insanity defenses include beliefs that the killing must be done for some noble purpose, such as the salvation of the infant or the salvation of the world. Severe depression, even without psychotic features, may distort a killer's thinking so that they believe that their children will be better off in heaven with them. And these extended self-unalivings, it is usually clear that the parent knew the nature and quality of the act and that the killing was legally wrong. However, the parent often believes he or she is doing what is morally right for the child. In some jurisdictions, this is sufficient to meet the insanity standard. A typical prosecution argument against an insanity defense is that the defendant became angry at the infant because of the demanding requirements of infant care, such as persistent crying. The argument suggests that the parent lost his or her temper and attacked the infant. I don't think prosecution is doing that here, but anyway, in effect, the argument is an effort of the prosecution to portray an infanticide as an example of extreme CA. Even though mothers are more likely to succeed with an insanity defense than fathers, the vast majority of women who kill their children are found guilty and sent to prison. This was an earlier study than the postpartum psychosis one that we well, and actually this is a broader thing, right? This is a broader, it's just about filicide, not about specifically postpartum depression, so it might still be true. This may be due to the fact that even a psychotically depressed parent who kills their child usually kills with premeditation and carries out the homicide in a logical, methodical manner. In one study of 20 women who raised postpartum depression or psychosis as an insanity defense, 1/2 were found not guilty by reason of insanity, 1/4 received heavy sentence, and 1/4 received light sentences. This was all the way back in the 80s. And I think that might be everything that, yeah. So, I mean, will Lindsay Clancy succeed? And has the prosecution shot themselves in the foot? From what we've read, it's kind of 50-50, right? It's close. She has somewhere like in the 43 to 46% chance out of 100%. I don't know I'm just not a statistician of prevailing. I personally believe, my personal thought, and look, we can disagree without hating on each other, but my personal thought is she probably deserves to be acquitted. Everything that I've read so far from reports on this, all the stuff that I've watched, all of the investigative stuff I've watched, yeah, I think she was in a psychotic state. But that's just me. I'm a layperson with no bona fides, nothing hanging on the wall that would indicate any expertise on the subject matter. Before we move on, let's just check in on you guys a couple more times. Thank you. Oh my goodness, you guys are seriously taking care of me. Thank you, Robin. This one goes out to our awesome followers. Without you and Gavin, Gavin's channel wouldn't be as great as it is. We are blessed. We are. We have the best chat on YouTube, I think. Not only is it the great viewers, but we have really good mods. Keeping it classy. You guys are awesome. Thank you, Robin. Christine Meadows says, thank you, Gavin, for all you do. And thank you, Christine. Appreciate that. Magical Mary bring into the conversation, people are afraid of loved one having mental illness or anything they don't understand. Mental illness awareness needs to happen. And I think we are slowly coming to that in our society. Dietitian says, Gavin, for these postpartum psychosis, not guilty by reason of insanity cases, what is the sentence? Well, there is no sentence in a traditional sense because they are not guilty. But because they're not guilty by reason of insanity, they are usually committed to some sort of inpatient hospital treatment. And it can be for the rest of their life, depending on, I think Nick Reiner will just spend the rest of his life in a hospital. And I think he probably should. Lindsay Clancy, I don't know. Anyway, continuing dietitian, because aside from the trauma, she does not have mental illness anymore. So does she stay at the psych just for punishment? No, the purpose of the inpatient treatment isn't for punishment. It is to be well. That's the point. So no, there's no punishment on a not guilty. There's only, okay, we've got an insanity here, so we need to make sure that this person is well. And if you will notice, like in the Siders cases, the judge has been asking the evaluators, what is the least, what is the terminology they use? Basically, they want the bare minimum, right, of treatment for these folks, the bare minimum of treatment. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's a really good question. Really, really good question. You guys do make it easy to be a host on YouTube, man. Okay, let's move on. We've finished up our coverage of Lindsay Clancy for today, but we've still got several things to go over. I want to bring you some headlines. The tragic crime that happened at a Minnesota daycare, the fate of the Tate brothers, the I guess the aspersion or the allegation that California is not doing enough to protect their female inmates from SA. And we've got some good news too. But before we do any of that, how about we hop into 3 questions? Let's go for it.
It's 3 questions with Gavin Fish.
Pow, guys, in this segment, I answer your questions that you email to me at 3questions@gavinfish.com. It's spelled out. 3questions@gavinfish.com, 3questions@gavinfish.com. Those questions come in. You can send one at a time. You can send 10 or 1,000 at a time. Doesn't matter, because my little AI agent goes in, grabs them, grabs your name, sticks them in a spreadsheet. And then I get to choose the 3 that I am going to answer on any particular day. I do it 3 at a time, and I promise that I won't dodge. I will answer to the best of my ability. And that is what we are going to do now. Question number 1. By the way, bonus points, brownie points, if you choose a question that can be answered by y'all in the live chat. I love those kinds of questions. Okay, Beth, continuing our travel theme of the question of the day, asks, do you prefer mountains, beaches, forests, or cities for a vacation? I prefer all of the above. I don't care. As long as I'm with a person that I love, my sweetie pie, my snuggly bear, my one and only, and or preferably or the kids. No, preferably and. It's not an or thing. No. Uh, my preference is Kimberly and I alone, but also with the kids is fun. And oftentimes we will go, in fact, in our last vacation back in California, we went up into the mountains. We went down to the beach. We went up into the forest to the Calaveras big trees. And we spent time in the city all as a family in one vacation. As long as we're together, happy am I. Happy am I. As far as living, I like mountains. Kimberly likes beaches. So it's probably time that we have a beach house. I think that she's worthy of it. It's just, that whole just a little detail. It's just this little detail of not being able to afford a beach house. Rent one maybe once every 5 or 6 years. Maybe we could do that. Maybe we could do that. Question number 2. If you could fly anywhere just for lunch, where would you go? I actually, twice in my life, have flown. No, more than that. Oh my goodness, way more. I will say twice in my life, I have flown commercially just for a meal. I've flown there, I've had the meal with the person I was with, and I flew back the same day. So I have done that. But like I've done it multiple times when it comes to me piloting the plane. That's like a thing that pilots do. You have to have like you have to have a reason to go flying. Nobody just wants to fly in circles, right? So there are all across the fruited plain, there are airports that have restaurants, including the airport in my little adopted hometown right here in Western Pennsylvania. They have restaurants that pilots will fly into just to grab a burger or gnocchis or some pasta or pizza or something like that. And in fact, the very first date that Kimberly and I went on, I have described to you before, was a flight from Sacramento down over the San Francisco Bay, crossing over the Golden Gate, hanging a left, going down the coast as the sun set in the west, landing there in Half Moon Bay, having a pizza, and then doing it in reverse. That was my first date with my wife. So I have done this multiple times. That's not the question. Joan's asking if you could fly anywhere just for lunch, where would you go right now? Right now? Uh, you know, uh, okay, this just makes me sound completely pretentious, and I am. But twice now, I have gone to Paris with one of my children on business trips. And on the first one, our oldest son and I, we got into Paris kind of late. We took the train in from England. We climbed the Eiffel Tower, and by the time we were done, it was late and we couldn't find an open cafe. There was one closing down who still had fire in his pizza oven. We asked him and he made us a delicious pizza. It was amazing. Like they were like putting up everything and they just said, "Here, guys, sit down, have a pizza." And they made us a delicious Neapolitan pizza. Like 8 or 9 years later, I can't remember exactly which, I was in England with my daughter and I said, "Let's go grab a pie." So we took the train over to Paris. We went to the Eiffel Tower and then we walked down the street to that same Italian place where we had the same pizza. It was delicious. We had a gelato. It was great. So yeah, I would do that. I would fly to Paris just to then, take the train in. I know exactly where it is, walking distance. Take the train in, Gare du Nord. It's a pretty long walk, but walk down to the Eiffel Tower, take about an hour, and then go on over to the restaurant, have a pie, and then at that point you're tired, grab an Uber, head on back to De Gaulle and come back. Yeah, I would do that. So Paris. Wow, that was a long one. But Joan, Paris, I guess. I would do that. I kind of did it already, but yeah, I would do it again. There are places here in the States that have. Where is a place here in the States that would be awesome to just fly into? It doesn't matter. That's my answer. Paris, final answer. And question number 3. What is the strangest food you have ever tried while traveling? Um, well, only strange in that I don't really like seafood, but anytime I would be on business in in Asia, typically my clients there, they were usually a distributor of mine of the products that my company made, would try to impress me with some sort of meal, and it was typically seafood. I don't really like seafood, but they always like reserved the cheek muscle of the fish and the eyeball of the fish for the guest of honor. So I guess that would be the strangest. There was one distributor that I had, a guy named Paul in Taiwan, who I just loved to this day, still in contact with the guy. And he would just take me out to where he and his friends ate. And instead of trying to impress me with stuff, I mean, the first couple of times he was like that. But then as we became friends, it was more like, hey, we're going to go grab whatever. And there were a couple times where I was like, I have no idea what I'm eating, but I'm enjoying it. Taiwanese food is A-okay by me. So, yeah, strange food for me was mostly, while traveling for business, was mostly in Asia, just because I'm not a seafood eating person. Oh, when I lived in Argentina, I ate armadillos and I ate cats multiple times. Because the people that were feeding it to us were poor, and they would go out into the fields and they would hunt whatever animal was out there. Armadillos was one place, feral cats was another. Armadillo, if you're wondering, is a red meat, cat is a white meat. But I've had those. I've had horse. I've had lots of strange foods. Living in Argentina, there isn't a single piece of the cow that I have not eaten. So there's just a lot. So you tell me in the chat. For Beth's question, do you prefer mountains, beaches, forests, or cities for a vacation? Joan's question, if you could fly anywhere just for lunch, where would you go? And Laura's question, what is the strangest food you have ever had or tried while traveling? And while you are answering those questions, how about I get into headlines? Here we go.
True crime headlines.
Okie dokie. I've just got a few headlines that I want to share with you guys today. All of them from the AP. Bring you over here. Man kills 7-year-old daughter and her mother at Minnesota daycare. This happened yesterday. A Minnesota man killed his wife and their 7-year-old daughter as young children gathered at a home daycare the couple owned before taking his own life, police said Wednesday. Sometime prior to the attack, police believe he also killed a 78-year-old relative at her home. The 41-year-old man fatally shot himself after stabbing his wife and child at their in-home daycare in Hopkins, a suburb of Minneapolis, police said. All 6 other children who were at the Brown Bear child care were not physically harmed. Another parent called police after witnessing the attack in the home's basement while dropping off a child. I don't want to encourage people to remove themselves from this mortal coil, but if you're going to do it, if you're going to do the old MS, start with the S. That's what I say. All right. In the Tate brothers saga, a judge postpones hearing over bail for Andrew and Tristan Tate. Dateline Miami. A federal judge in Miami has postponed a hearing over whether social media influencers Andrew and Tristan Tate should remain in custody as they fight extradition to the United Kingdom, where the brothers are accused of R and trafficking. U.S. Magistrate Lauren Lewis had been scheduled to hear arguments from both sides on Thursday before determining if the brothers, who have repeatedly denied wrongdoing, should stay in jail or be released during what could be a month-long extradition process. Lewis granted a defense request to move the hearing to August 27th. Lawyers for the Tates said they needed more time to respond to the prosecutor's arguments. Please, 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 please do not let these men out as they are a flight risk. They just are. Just please don't. Okay. And then this one interested me. California prisons fail to protect women from SA, the Department of Justice says. This is from the AP, Dateline Los Angeles. California's prison system has systematically failed to protect incarcerated women from SA and harassment by guards, the U.S. Department of Justice said Thursday. The federal investigation also found that California's Corrections Department failed to provide victims with a safe way to report SA and harassment without retaliation. On top of that, staff who were tasked with investigating the misconduct were often themselves accused of the SA or harassment. The investigation, which began during the Biden administration, focused on two state prisons, the Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla and the California Institution for Women in Chino. It uncovered numerous instances where guards regularly SA'd incarcerated women. In at least one instance, a guard was convicted of rampant abuse over roughly a decade and sentenced to 224 years in prison. The California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation did not respond to an email seeking comment. Women were told to report misconduct on an online system that wasn't confidential and that the accused officers had access to, according to Harmeet K. Dillon, Assistant Attorney General for the Justice Department Civil Rights Division. Dillon said the women are fully aware of this gap in confidentiality, and this serves as a deterrent from women reporting the misconduct. She named at least one sergeant whose job it was to investigate misconduct, who was himself sentenced to 15 years in prison after pleading guilty to receiving CSAM on the job. Quote, the upshot of our investigation is that California's prison system, when it comes to women, has inadequate systems in place to deter, detect, and hold accountable rampant sexual misconduct and assault on female prisoners, Dillon said at a news conference held in Los Angeles on Thursday. Guys, here in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, there in every prison, in every state, well, county prisons, what we call them here are prisons. They're county jails, but we call prisons SCIs here. But in every SCI and in every prison, there is supposed to be a telephone where an inmate, male or female, can pick it up, and it will immediately go to investigators who investigate SA in the prison. I cannot tell you how many prisoners I have heard from who have said they pick up that phone and it is dead air. I have heard from some and former COs who have said, in the cases where they work, that the COs that are the abusers are able to monitor those calls. So this isn't just California, this is all over the United States. And it has to stop because, look, people who are incarcerated, they are being punished for crimes that they committed. I think it's a huge commentary on our society, if a negative commentary on our society, if we allow the people who are in our custody to be SA'd and then call it, well, you shouldn't have done the crime. You do the crime, you do the time, and get SA'd for it. We shouldn't do that. We should be better than that. And so that is where I stand on the issue. I'm glad the DOJ is investigating that. It is all throughout the fruited plain, though, and I am hopeful that that this will be rooted out. Let's see what you guys are saying for your answers to today's questions. Let's see. Marie came in with a super chat. Thank you, Marie. Brian Enton had a doctor on his show who said she could actually be released if not found guilty. I guess that's possible. Yeah, that doctor would know more than me, and thank you very much for the super chat. Mooney says, I prefer mountains that have a beach. Yeah, you're not just going to take the question at face value. You're going to answer it the way you want to, Mooney. I would expect nothing less. Melissa says, question number 1, forest or the beach with my 2 kids and their significant other because I never get to see them. New to Heaven says, if she does have bipolar, perhaps the period of time she was trying to get a quick fix was actually part of the manic episode. She was experiencing insomnia while also being able to exercise. Yeah. Marie says, mountains and forests, New Hampshire for seafood and having lunch with family. Question number 3, escargot. Magical Mary says, Pick and Pig in Carthage, North Carolina. You can fly right into it, get out of your plane, and eat within a few feet. That sounds awesome. Archangel Marici says, Gavin, I can't believe you ate cat. In my country, some people also eat cat for the same reason. I haven't. Yeah, I was in a position where I was kind of beggars can't be choosers, right? And didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And so when that was what was served to me, I ate it. Robin says, strangest food, I've been offered horse meat in the Netherlands, and while visiting my grandpa, we ate squirrels and also rabbits. My grandpa was raising in the hutches outside his house. Yeah, we used to feed rabbit to our kids that we raised. Robin also says, oh, I've eaten chocolate-covered crickets from Africa because it's got chocolate. It's got to be okay. Sure. Clarinet Girl says, travel to a city because my daughter loves to shop. Lunch anywhere. Fresh caught shrimp. I once ate fried frog legs. I've had frog legs. Not bad. Not bad at all. Penguin says, need to be careful with squirrel meat. Sometimes a piece of buckshot is missed. It can really hurt your teeth. Magical Mary says, number 1, beach mountains. I'm a California girl. Number 2, BC. Number 3, escargot, frog legs, and snake. Snake is one that I've been offered. Actually, I can't remember if I've had it or not now. I know that we always did that like on scout camps and stuff. I don't know if I ever did partake. Melissa says, Gavin, protecting women in correctional prisons doesn't surprise me at all. We should be protecting them. Gluten free is moving to the beach Monday. Good for you. Kristen prefers mountain lake for vacations, somewhere in Italy for lunch, and strangest thing I've eaten is emu. Tastes like chicken. I've had emu in Argentina. Good stuff. Robin says, I love to travel to places with historical significance. Europe is full of places like this, and it can be cities or not. Great answers to all the 3 questions, guys. Now, let us, if we can, cleanse our palate and just get into some good news. Okay, Wanda, will you cleanse away for us real quick?
Leave your worries.
Give us some transition music.
Take a mental trip. Clear the mind. Catch a smile. Enjoy the view. Here's some good news just for you.
Wanda, thank you very much for that. I already feel better. Guys, Brown students spend summer helping teens find their English voice. This from the Good News Network. Danielle Samadani writing. For a group of teenagers learning English in Providence, Rhode Island, summer school this year looked a little different. There were vocabulary games and journal entries, but also trips into the community where students could put their new language skills to work, whether speaking with a cashier at a local market or learning how to describe their experience on a resume. Teaching the 4-week class was Brown University student Justin Dunn, who spent the summer leading intermediate English courses for teens at the city's public library. Quote, we're helping these students, but I'm learning and gaining just as much, said Justin. I've learned so much about Providence and the amazing people here. The rising sophomore found the library opportunity through the university's Sprint iProv Fellowship, which places undergraduates in full-time summer positions with nonprofit groups throughout this capital city, including helping to create and teach a 4-week English language curriculum. Above all, Justin wanted to teach the teens English sentences they could actually use. Most of my lessons focus on real-life skills. I think that's just awesome. Justin is one of 40 Brown undergraduates spending the summer working full-time with Providence nonprofits, making the world a little brighter. So good on Justin and the other 40 Brown students who are doing that. I hope it is meaningful to you, and thank you for helping. I was a person in a country learning a second language. It's tough. It's a tough process. Getting people out into the community to actually use those skills. That's where it's at. Justin knows what's up, and he is another one of the helpers that Mr. Rogers points out. Always look for the helpers. It's not just bad news, guys. We're not in a world of bad news. We're in a world of beautiful people. I see comments on my Facebook quite a lot. If you're not following me on Facebook, by the way, I invite you to do that. Links in the description below, where people will say, people are a-holes and stuff like that. No. A very few number of people are bad. The rest are awesome. Like Justin over at Brown University. Good on him for doing that. Guys, thank you so much for sticking with me all the way to the end. I really appreciate you. We will be back tomorrow because it's Friday. It'll be our Friday wrap-up show with Elizabeth Jones from Hillbilly Crime. I hope you will join me for that at 6 p.m. Eastern here on YouTube. If you can't do that and you're a member of the Rewatch crew or the podcast crew, just pick it up on your favorite podcast platform, or if you're a Spotify premium video subscriber, watching the show over there really helps out the channel. Like so much. So thank you for doing that. Until the next time, I bid you adieu, and I hope to see you then. Take care.